Update. Former owner's nephew broke into our home, then said I should not have changed my locks. Original post. So Saturday night, the missus and I are lying in bed trying to go to sleep when I hear some noise from the back door. The storm door opens and slams shut. I'm not fully asleep yet, so I put on the pants and shirt I can find and grab my trusty shotgun. We move to the mountainside and most of the area is still wooded. Living in such conditions, wild animals are an issue. We have bears, coyotes, raccoons, and bobcats to name a few. As I'm moving to the back door, I hear a window break in the back garage. I look out and see someone breaking into my garage. I scream for the wife to call the sheriff's office. Around here, 911 doesn't work well for break-ins. We are connected with a couple of counties and it gets confusing for them. We get a quicker response by calling them directly. I'm now in go mode thinking some meth head is trying to score some tools for quick cash. I get out of the house and notice this person's truck still running. I do the only thing I can think of. I take the key out of the truck, put it in my pocket, and wait for the deputies to show up. It took them 20 minutes to show up. One was state police and the other was a local sheriff deputy who were doing radar 10 miles up the road. My wife and I know them both. With my gun in hand, I told them someone was in the garage, that I hadn't approached it yet, and handed them the key to the perp's truck. They go in guns drawn and deal with the situation. The dude was passed out on an old bench seat from an old truck body tool bench. They wake him up and arrest him with little to no issues, other than him screaming profanity at them. They told me I can press charges and to come in on Monday to file the paperwork. He's not getting out anytime soon since, on top of his breaking in, he's being charged with a DUI. Yesterday, I spent the day traveling trying to fix the window this a-hole broke since there are no stores open Sunday in my local area. While in my travels, I'm fuming at the fact that I'm having to do this repair on a junk door from the 70s. My wife was telling me to maybe let him go with a warning, but I'm having none of it. So this morning I went to the sheriff's office. The same deputy who arrested the perpetrator was there, so I asked him how the ride with the dude was. This is the version the officer gave me. Officer, why did you break into the garage? Perp, I was trying to get my stuff back, but someone changed the lock. Officer, you know they purchased that place from Kevin 2 years ago, right? Perp, what? That doesn't give them the right to change the lock without telling me. Officer, yeah, they can. You haven't been in that house for like 4 years, and I was the one who got you out of that house because you beat the hell out of your old lady. That's twice I get to arrest you on the same property. Perp, but he shouldn't be entitled to change the locks though. Where else am I supposed to go? A little backstory on the property. We purchased it from Kevin, who's a school board member, and he gave us a decent deal on the property. He had it as a rental for his nephew for a few years. When his nephew started following in his dad's footsteps by getting drunk and beating his girlfriend at the time, he evicted him from the property 2 years before we purchased it. When he evicted him, the nephew emptied the contents of the garage as scrap metal. He found that out Sunday morning when his uncle paid him a visit in jail. Kevin had other renters on the property after that. He sold it to us because he didn't want the responsibility anymore. The perp is being charged with trespassing, criminal trespassing, breaking and entering, DUI, and property damage of less than $500. Now for the top comments before reading the update. I can't believe you changed the locks without telling him, and you didn't even give him a key. Laughing out loud. Around here, he would have been shot. He's lucky you hung back and called the cops. I am in Louisiana. Pull that here, and the folks looking for you will just find fat alligators. I find it so weird how basically nothing happens to people like this. He obviously hasn't changed, and would probably beat any poor girl that has a low enough self-esteem to be with trash like him. There should be longer sentences for DV. Since he had the potential of stealing $40,000 in tools, I'm going to make sure he gets nailed. Unfortunately, you're right. I don't know who she is or where she is. I'd hate to think she's hiding under a rock somewhere afraid of this guy. That's not fair. So, where is this nephew now? Still in jail? Dude really has some screws loose if he thinks any of his stuff is still on the property. Yep, I'm going to stop by his uncle's place later this week to see what's up. Now for the update. So it's been a little while. I didn't have a chance to meet with Kevin last Thursday since I damn near spent the day dealing with police, who decided to just bring the attorney who's going to be the prosecutor for this case. He was very impressed that I still had all the original receipts for all the tools. All they would tell me is that, because of how much in tools he had access to steal, he would be charged with criminal trespassing, breaking and entering with malicious intent, and attempted grand larceny, which all makes sense. He would not comment on the possible DUI charge, just asked for the footage of him driving in and showed me taking the key out, backing the story I gave the original officer. They were pretty happy with the evidence and said I should be able to get $500 for the damage done to the door as restitution. As for Kevin, we had coffee yesterday and he spilled the beans on his nephew. I asked him if his nephew was the reason he gave us a good deal on the property, and he said no. He felt most of the property around here was overpriced and was excited about what my wife was bringing to the school, and he wanted to make sure she wasn't going to struggle while living here. I'm still doing all kinds of work on the house since it's all pretty much 70s to 80s type setup. When the nephew was arrested, he was put into the drunk tank and used his phone call to call his uncle. He was still so drunk that the officer had to get the number for him. He then told Uncle Kevin, "Get your ass down here and bail me out right now." Kevin responded with, "I'll see you in the morning, son." So Sunday morning he went there to have a little chat. Since the nephew was evicted after his arrest, he skipped town before his court case of assault and battery. His other cousin bailed him out, and he skipped on his bail, costing his cousin $750. But it doesn't end there. He asked him what he did to support himself. He wheeled and dealed, as he put it. Worked a few cash construction and farm jobs, where, get this, he admitted to going back and stealing tools, materials and parts to sell them in 3 states. He's been to West Virginia, Kentucky, and North Carolina. He ended up getting decent at locating parts and selling them. Here's the twist. One person approached him looking for a couple of blocks and a transmission. He was offering $5,000 for those parts. Then he remembered he had those exact parts sitting in his old garage in Virginia, and he was going to get them. He doesn't remember Saturday evening too well. He just remembers trying to use his key. And when it didn't work on the house, he noticed the garage door and tried to get in there since it never had a lock. But I found one that works. That's when Kevin broke the news that after a month of him skipping town, he cleared everything from the house and garage. He brought in a dumpster from a scrap metal company and got $850 for all the metal found in the garage. So he asked Kevin what he did with the money. He said he approached his other nephew to reimburse him for the bail money, but the nephew declined, and he offered it to the now ex-girlfriend. This boy lost his shit on his uncle and demanded he put up bail money. Then he asked if his truck was still at my place. Kevin said no, the state police had it. He turned white as a ghost. The plates he had on the truck were stolen tags from North Carolina. He has no driver's license. Kevin asked him if he was in trouble in any other state. He said he didn't know. After he would score, he'd skip town. Kevin gave all that information to the attorney for them to possibly check any other state and city for open investigations on theft. On Thursday, he demanded a bail hearing, and it should come as no surprise that the judge denied any bail whatsoever. I asked Kevin what happened to the ex-girlfriend. After the nephew was arrested, he went to visit her and wanted to make sure she was going to press charges so that the nephew might be able to get sober and get his life straight. He told her not to let the nephew on the property and that he was going to give her a couple of months rent-free to figure things out. She ended up moving to Harrisonburg with her sister. She had a pretty messed up upbringing, and her sister was now able to help her since she's no contact with mom and stepdad. They grew up in Elkins, West Virginia, and were both trying to leave the nastiness. The sister ended up bettering herself with education, while she just tried to hook up with the first guy that could take her out of town. Kevin hasn't spoken to her in 3 years, so that's pretty much all the info he had on it. On one of those entitled People Get Arrested videos on YouTube, I saw a drunk woman at the police station, screaming for someone to pick her up right now. The more noise you make, LOL. I find it interesting that even though he's caught and he's in jail, he still thinks he's entitled to his demands. He doesn't ask for stuff or help, he demands it. What really makes people think like that? There are a few reasons. The main ones? 1. They have an inflated ego and believe that they are smarter than everyone else. 2. They have gotten away with crimes, which emboldens them. 3. They think that they can lie so well that no charges will be filed, and they can go out and commit more crimes in another location until the heat dies down. 4. Even though they have been caught red-handed, they think protesting their innocence will help them if charges are filed, as they will try for a diminished responsibility or insanity defense. Would enjoy knowing how things work out in the end. I'm just enjoying the fact he's now standing alone to face the music. He might be able to get a public defender and that's about it. His truck was the only thing he owned. He's burned enough bridges with his family that they don't want anything to do with him. Second story. Neighbor kept blocking my garage because she felt she could. Original post. A while back, I moved into an apartment with individual garages in the alley behind the building. The building had 10 units, 8 studios, and 2 one-bedroom apartments. I had a one-bedroom. The day I was moving in, I met La Crystal. She lived in one of the studios on the opposite end of the building, and she immediately informed me. I parked there, referring to the front of my garage. Parking is scarce in that area, and street sweeping is done at odd hours, like 3:30 a.m. So when people find a spot, they don't move until they absolutely have to. They'll Uber places instead of driving. I asked why she didn't park in her own garage, and she stated she had an old broken-down car in her garage already. I told her that she needed to find another parking spot as I leave for work most days at 4 a.m. She then gave me her phone number and just said, "Call me and I'll move." I was already thinking of all the work I had to do moving in and setting up, so I just said okay, so as not to ruffle any new neighbor's feathers. I just didn't feel like arguing with someone 5 minutes into moving in. Calling her to move her car started out okay, but quickly turned into a pain. There were times I'd call her and 10 minutes later, I was still waiting. I'd call again only to be screamed at with, "I told you I was coming, damn!" It didn't stop there. There would be times I'd come home at night and couldn't get in because she blocked my garage. It got to the point that I asked her to stop. She wouldn't. The owner of the property was a buddy and client of mine, so I eventually told him about it. He then posted signs on the property saying that parking in front of garages would result in the vehicle being towed. Well, one night I came home with my girlfriend and she was in front of my garage. I called her 3 times and she sent it to voicemail each time. I walked up to her unit and heard her inside talking crap about me calling her. No problem. I called the tow truck and had her car towed. I left my girlfriend in my place the next morning while I went to work for a few hours. She called me and said La Crystal was standing outside my window on her phone talking loudly. Some bitch-ass N-word who think he's something because he lives in a one-bedroom got my car towed for no reason because he's a bitch, is what I was told she said. When I got home, La Crystal was standing in the courtyard with a devilish grin on her face. She greeted me with a, "Hello, neighbor," like I was supposed to be scared of her. I said hello back and went inside. She got on her phone and called someone and continued to talk about me, saying I owe her $300 and I better pay it if I want to keep breathing. The next day she had a guy, I'm assuming her man, come over to intimidate me. Now I'm 6'4", 215 pounds. This guy was 6'5", 250 pounds at least. For the next week, anytime I walked outside, he would just come out and give me a menacing stare. I stared back, but no words were ever exchanged. Well, I didn't pay her jack, and she got towed again a few days later for parking in front of someone else's garage. This time the owner, my buddy, drove by and saw her car and called it in. She was towed at least 2 times after that, along with a buddy she had parked in front of someone else's garage. Of course she thought I had something to do with it. The tow is perfect revenge. That'll cost her some money each time she parks in front of a garage. The best part is a tow truck doesn't argue back. She can rant all she wants, but once that car's hooked, the wallet's bleeding. Exactly. Sometimes consequences are the only way to get through to entitled people. La Crystal is a gem of a name. They usually don't give their stripper names outside of work. She looked more like a reverse stripper. People paid her to put clothes on. I just have to love her trying to intimidate you after she would not do the right thing, and still losing. Her poor boyfriend, imagine. Hey honey, this bitch's neighbor got me towed because he thinks he owns his parking spot that I use. Can you come and make him pay me the fine? Why were you parking in front of his? I said if you want booty, you will do this for me. Fine, point him out. Guy stares at OP with no intention of ever actually doing anything because he knows that his girlfriend is crazy. I'm not sure why anyone would want booty from her. I wouldn't hit that with a stolen dick. You had the right to tow her vehicle, as it is illegal to block access to personal property. You tried to warn her, I assume, and she chose to ignore and be a jerk about it. We've towed people abandoning their vehicles near our property before because they think it's a public street and it isn't. If it escalates, you can move forward with a cease and desist for harassment, as it did turn into that with her blocking your driveway. If she escalates it further, you can call the cops on her. I've long since moved. The week I moved, a random Bentley and some friend of hers got towed for the same thing. I'm sure she blamed me. Now for the update. Didn't expect this to blow up, but the reason LaCrystal didn't park in front of her own garage was because the building was old, with old garage doors that extended out before going upward. The door would have hit her car, which wasn't even hers. It belonged to Uber. If she moved further away, she would have been blocking the narrow alley that barely had enough room for one car to drive through. I no longer live there, but she did something else dumb right before I left. The building had a no-pet policy. Well, she got a Yorkie because she's above the rules. Maintenance entered her apartment one day for some scheduled work they informed all the tenants about ahead of time. The dog freaked out and bolted out the door when the men entered. It ran out into the street and was hit by a car. Sadly, it didn't make it. She blamed property management because it wasn't her dog and she was watching it for a friend. Wherever she is now, I'm sure she's blaming someone else for her transgressions.